Pablo, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? JP, good to see you as well. Good evening. How you doing? Good to see you, brother. Comatose, good to see you as well. How you doing? Pure, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Free and Feather, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Mike, good to see you as well, brother. How you doing? How you been? Just trying to pin the live show. There we go. Evening, Miles and CMF. Jason, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Hey, brother Miles, always a pleasure. Let's go, Bert. Good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Hi, Miles. Good to see you again. Autistic, good to see you as well. How you doing? How's things? By the way, thank you so much to everybody who has straight away liked and retweeted this live. If you're watching this on X, and thanks so much to everyone on YouTube who's watching right now who's also straight away liked the live as well. How did your trip go? It was good. I worked out quite a bit of things. One is that I can launch in a few days the CoinMove essentially car section can be launched within a few days. So essentially hiring out a vehicle yourself, or essentially for chauffeuring, that is going to be available. Chauffeuring first, but it's going to be available on CoinMove using essentially cryptocurrency. So not only is construction going to be live at the exact same time, but also hiring out a vehicle. If you want a chauffeuring, essentially someone to chauffeur you around, and high-end vehicles, that's also going to be available soon within a few days on CoinMove's website. And I'm going to start being a lot more active on CoinMove's page on X also, because the last one that's going to be active is the properties, because that's where there's a lot of regulations, that there's a lot of hurdles you would have to jump through. But launching the construction side and the car side, that one doesn't have that many hurdles compared to the real estate side. So those two definitely being launched within a few days, the construction side and also renting out a vehicle, hiring out a vehicle, chauffeuring purposes, using cryptocurrency. So that's going to be available on CoinMove's website. So that's what essentially was worked out in the 2 days that I left London. I was working. I was trying to figure these two things out. And they've now been figured out, so just need to update the CoinMove website. Not much happening in the marketplace. Yes, not much happening in terms of price action, but a lot is happening essentially behind the scenes. Good evening, Miles and CMF. Good to see you, Zobolexopia. How you doing? Hello, Miles. What's happening with the markets? Pure manipulation is what's happening with the markets, to be fairly honest. Good evening, Miles. Good to see you. Good to see you, Michael. How you doing? Now, let's do intro, disclaimer, what we're going to talk about tonight's live. And I have missed doing the live show as well. Now, welcome to the CMF Live. If you're watching this for the first time ever, the CMF stands for Essentially Crypto Miles Family. My name is Miles. You can tune to this live Monday to Friday, 10 p.m., long time onwards. For the most recent news regarding cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, and regulations. Pretty much vital information for you to know about regarding the world completely transforming into a digital space. We also do Q&As on this live as well, which means if you do have any questions, put it down in the comment section. I'm more than happy to help you out. And the disclaimer of this live, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. And regarding the video that everybody saw, regarding the collab that I did through a third party for the Ripple Swell event, I hope everyone enjoyed it. That was a little secret that I kept silent. I did that video 2 days or 3 days. I did that video actually the night before I left, essentially the UK, to go head towards Madrid. I did that video session the night before. But yeah, I kept that one quiet until it comes out, until it came out, essentially. Miles, we definitely need cojones, yeah. Good evening, Professor Miles and the rest of the family. Good to see you all, Funky Brother. How you doing? How are you, brother? I'm good, Funky Brother. Let's go. Miles, definitely cojones, definitely. Binance manipulation again, is it? No, it's not Binance manipulation again. It is manipulation 100%, but it's not Binance manipulation again. And I didn't see the video. Michael, you haven't seen the video? It's on over X. It's on my profile. If you go to my profile on X, Michael, or if you go to the group, essentially, it's there. You can go watch it. Watch it after the live show, essentially. But it's there. I also pinned it on my profile on X. So always check out the pinned videos or pinned content that I do on X. It was great. Let's go, JP. Hi, Miles of Family. Alex, good to see you. How you doing? Morning, Miles of CMF. Shelly, good to see you. Morning, how you doing? How you been? Now, what's happening inside the market space is, again, over-exaggerated manipulation on the news. The first time the crypto markets tanked, it was because of the Chinese tariff situation, which was ridiculous to start off with, because we've had Chinese tariff news before. It's never did the damage it did inside the market space. Of course, there was some manipulation going on there as well. Now you essentially fast forward to today, where the markets dipped, and they're blaming it on essentially Trump, getting arms ready to enter into Nigeria, they're saying. And that's why essentially the crypto markets have dumped, because Trump has made a threat towards Nigeria that they're going to go in if they don't stop, essentially persecuting Christians, which I fairly understand why Trump is doing that. And, nobody should be killed for their faith in any sort of a way. But the idea that that is going to tank the crypto markets is absolutely stupid, to be fairly honest. But that news was used to collapse the crypto markets. It's just they use now any news to collapse the crypto markets. Any news will do. The most basic news that about 2 years ago wouldn't have even flinched the crypto market space, that same news today would collapse the crypto markets. So they're genuinely just doing this based on pure manipulation, because they know what's going to happen next, which is the Clarity Act, which is exactly what they've been discussing essentially inside the Ripple Swell event. If anybody saw the Ripple Swell event today, every person that basically was on a panel talk kept on repeating the same things, which is the Clarity Act. The Clarity Act will do this. The Clarity Act will bring this. The Clarity Act will open doors for crypto, and so on. We are so close to a Clarity Act, which gives clarification to cryptocurrencies, that this is the perfect time for essentially people to be pushed out of their positions, out of spot positions, essentially, and for a lot of people to get liquidated, essentially, on futures trading. But futures trading right now is just ridiculously too. You have to be very cautious to essentially do any sort of futures trading right now. Again, not financial advice whatsoever. But yeah, any news a long time ago, the most basic news that's happening now could collapse the crypto markets, and they're doing it on purpose. They're genuinely doing it on purpose, because they know how close we are to a Clarity Act, and they know that the government shutdown essentially doesn't need to end for the Clarity Act to be passed through. So they're doing this on purpose to push people out of their positions. And I will explain to you why. So first, let's start with the sanction, essentially. Let's just start off with essentially the US sanction news regarding North Korea. Apparently that has also affected the crypto market spaces as well, which made it collapse ever so slightly. The US sanctions on North Korean bankers over crypto laundering tied to cyber attacks. The Treasury Department sanctioned 8 individuals and 2 entities accused of using crypto and shell companies to follow millions of essentially cryptocurrencies and to pay Song to essentially fund North Korea's weapon programs. The US Treasury has imposed fresh sanctions on a group of North Korean bankers and institutions accused of money laundering, essentially in cryptocurrencies, tied to cyber attacks and illicit IT work schemes that help fund Paysong's weapon programs. This wouldn't have even flinched the crypto space 3 years ago if it came out. Now, it essentially makes the crypto markets shake and collapse. And it's just because of pure manipulation, because with every news now, they're just over-exaggerating it inside the market space. The Office of Foreign Assets Control essentially said today that 8 individuals and 2 entities were designated for laundering funds derived from cybercrime and information technology workers' fraud, including proceeds linked to ransom and crypto thefts. North Korean state sponsors hackers steal, essentially, and launder money to fund the regime's nuclear power programs, said essentially under the Secretary of Treasury for the TX and the essentially financial intelligence, John K. Hurley, in a press release. Last month, blockchain analytics firm EP399 reported that North Korean hackers had stolen more than $2 billion worth of cryptocurrencies in 2025, underscoring the regime's growing resilience on digital assets. According to Treasury DPRK, linked hackers use advanced malware, phishing campaigns, and social engineering to breach crypto firms and exchanges. A recent CoinDesk investigation also found that North Korean hackers are increasingly leveraging AI to automate and scale their attacks. These sanctioned networks allegedly relied on cryptocurrency transactions and shell companies to counsel essentially the flow of illicit funds. 2 North Korean bankers, Jang Kook Chol and Hong Jong Sang, managed at least to get away with $5.3 million worth of crypto tied to the OFAC designated first credit bank funds linked to a ransomware group that previously targeted US victims and laundered earnings from overseas DPRK IT workers. The OFAC said both men were essentially designated under multiple executive orders for supporting cyber-enabled activities and commercial operations that generated revenue for North Korean government. The Treasury also targeted essentially North Korean and the computer technology company KMCTC, which operates essentially IT workers, delegations in China, essentially, and the KMCTC and its president, Yu Young, allegedly used Chinese initials as banking proxies to disguise the origins of the funds earned by the DPRK IT workers abroad. The idea that essentially North Korea was, using Chinese essentially employees to get away and be able to connect to the Chinese banks as if the Chinese government didn't know is completely ludicrous. Of course, the Chinese government knew that North Korea was doing this. Who funds North Korea? Russia and China are the only two essentially countries that fund North Korea. So the idea that China didn't know about this whole hacking scenario is just absurd to me whatsoever. Tuesday's actions extended to essentially Credit Bank, accused of soliciting international transfers for North Korean entities involved in sanctions and envisions and crypto laundering. OFAC said the designations reinforce U.S. efforts to cut off illicit revenue streams, fueling North Korea's weapon programs and cyber operations that threaten the global digital economy. So, the reasons why the crypto markets collapsed today, they're blaming it essentially on, one, Trump saying that he wants to go into, essentially, he wants to go into Nigeria due to the whole Christian essentially thing that's happening over there, which is very bad. And two, they're saying because Trump said he's sanctioning North Korea, that has affected the crypto market space. When has ever North Korea affected the crypto market spaces? Pretty much never. But now it's a different scenario because we're coming up so close to a Clarity Act that anything will trigger the crypto markets to go on the downside. Also, Bitcoin liquidity thins as US government shutdowns drives on-chain flight to stablecoins. Bitcoin's liquidity is drying up as the ongoing US government shutdown enters its second month, freezing federal flows and rattling crypto prices. That, I understand, a government shutdown is very bad for the entire market space. But the idea that the North Korean one, Nigerian news is going to affect the crypto market spaces is just stupid. Those two news have been exaggerated for the crypto market space. But the government shutdown, yes, that does affect the crypto market spaces, and it's still going on. Why? Because the Democrats just won't vote. So far, we've had 13 voting rounds. 13 voting rounds. And every single time, the Democrats said no. And yet, the Democrats are the same people that say, we care about American citizens. Well, if you care enough about American citizens, how about you vote yes? Because people are starting to lose more of, essentially, a lot of people are starting to lose their jobs in America. Too many people have lost their jobs in America, to be fairly honest. A lot of people can't put food on their plates in America or keep their lights on, or essentially people that are on benefits in the US who struggle to feed their family, they can't get payments either. And all of this is because the Democrats won't vote yes. But yet the Democrats will come out and say, we stand with the American people. They don't stand with anyone, to be fairly honest. The physical gridlock essentially is forcing a major shift in investor behavior, moving capital towards the perceived safety of stablecoins and away from more volatile digital assets. Analysis from essentially a Japanese company has came out and give their analysis. Analysis from X-Win Research Japan indicates that the ongoing essentially US government shutdown is causing visible disruptions in the crypto markets. With Bitcoin's metrics essentially displaying warning signs, the data shows that the amount of BTC held on exchanges has increased for the first time in 6 weeks, a movement that often suggests investors are preparing to sell. At the same time, miners essentially of the flagship cryptocurrency are being squeezed with their collective reserves falling to the lowest points since mid-2025, indicating they are likely offloading parts of their stash to cover costs as government energy subsidies and tax credits remain suspended. However, the most telling signal is the record number of stablecoin withdrawal transactions from the trading platforms, with X-Win describing it as a mass move into dollar-pegged safety. In its assessment, this essentially three-part pattern, rising exchange reserves, falling minor reserves, and record stablecoin exits paints a consistent picture, a broad retreat from speculative assets, essentially. Capital is moving out of risk and on-chain liquidity is contracting, wrote a research, essentially. Investor sentiment has also deteriorated significantly, mirroring this shift. The fear and greed, essentially, index has fallen back to extreme fear zones, levels last seen during 2023 banking liquidity crisis, reflecting deep anxiety across the trading landscape. Now, Xwin, the Japanese analytics firm, are proposing that while there may be temporary rebound when the physical standoff ends, on-chain data suggests that it may take a while longer before capital and confidence goes back to pre-shutdown levels. For Bitcoin, this period is not simple dip to buy. It's a stress test of conviction, liquidity, and patience, and a market shaped by physical disfaction. I'll be very honest as well. The Democrats hated the idea of cryptocurrencies. Nancy Pelosi hated the idea of cryptocurrencies because Trump's family was profiting from that. Pocahontas hated the idea, essentially, of Trump's family profiting from cryptocurrencies. The majority of Democrats hate Trump and hate to do anything that essentially does with him. So the longer also the Democrats are not voting essentially yes, and they're voting no, they know for a fact that they're damaging the crypto market space the longer this keeps on carrying on. So they're doing this on purpose to hurt Trump, essentially, on that side of the spectrum, and to also hurt the American people who are inside the crypto space, and to essentially hurt families in America because people are losing their jobs, because people are also essentially not be able to feed their homes. Honestly, the Democrats are the worst human beings to ever exist, ever. And politicians in general are horrible people, but the Democrats are genuinely Satan in this type of scenario, because they're doing this on purpose, because they know that they couldn't stop Trump with this whole crypto essentially movement that he was doing. So then essentially causing a government shutdown damages the crypto market space day by day, the longer essentially this is carrying on, which stops, Trump's crypto family scenario, but also stops us inside the crypto space as well, the retail section. So, I mean, just to put into perspective as well, who's benefiting from this scenario? 80% of BitGet's volume now comes from institutions. And it's not just BitGet. You see, what's happening inside the market space right before Clarity Act is essentially pushing out retail people from their positions. And who's essentially replacing the retail section inside the market space? Institutions. Typically, institutions wouldn't be buying essentially a tremendous amount from crypto exchanges, but now they are. Isn't that funny? A time where essentially when the crypto market is in turmoil, the crypto market is all over the place. Retail is essentially the fear and index greed, essentially the fear and greed index is at extreme fear. The crypto market space is all over the place. And this is the time that institutions are 80% of the buyers inside the crypto space, while the retail is being pushed out of fear, or because people need money to pay their bills because they might be losing their jobs if you're a US citizen. So institutional traders have just crossed a historical milestone on BitGet Exchange. And it's not just BitGet Exchange that institutions are the majority buyers right now. One of the largest crypto exchanges in the world, with 80% of the total volume now in their hands, this trend raises questions, a sign of maturity or a risk of centralization. Analysis figures and the stakes for the market. Institutional traders accounted for 80% of the total volume of BitGet, compared to only 39.4% back in January. In January, institutional buyers inside the crypto space through BitGet Exchange were around 39.4%. Now, when the crypto markets are tanking and everybody's on extreme fear, we're in a government shutdown, there's pure manipulation going on. 80% of the buyers of the essentially institutional sector. Just think about that for a second. In a time like this, 80% institutional buyers, the rest is retail section. Retail is genuinely being pushed out. But the main question is, why essentially is 80% institutional buyers at this moment in time? Because Clarity Act is next. And it's essentially Clarity Act was mentioned multiple times during the Ripple Swell event today. Anybody that kept on coming onto the panel, they all kept on talking about the Clarity Act. The Clarity Act will open doors. The Clarity Act will do this. The Clarity Act, because that's pretty much what's next to happen. And that's why retail is pretty much getting pushed out, and 80% of the buyers right now are institutions. This growth is explained by the quality, essentially, of BitGet's liquidity, also now comparable to Binance and OKX Exchange. Professional tools optimize execution, order book depths attract institutional funds also. According to the Nason report, liquidity has become the heartbeat of the crypto markets. A decisive centration of professional traders. BitGet is not alone in this race. Binance, OKX, and Crypto.com compete to attract these players, transforming the exchange landscape into an institutional playground. The arrival of institutional players and this moment in time marks a turning point for the crypto ecosystem. As Ryan Lee, the chief analyst at BitGet, explains, this is what Ryan Lee essentially had to say. Recent flows show a collapse in contributions from small wallets, less than essentially 0.1 BTC. While spot ETFs and self-custody models capture attention, this structural transition where retail participation fades pretty much away in favor of off-exchange and long-term accumulation directly benefits BitGet and institutions. As a universal, essentially, UEX, we integrate on-chain, essentially, assets, blue chips, and equity, essentially, crypto contracts to cater to both native innovation and institutional strategies. Moreover, funds like, essentially, that they do offer on their market spaces is mainly also attracting these institutional buyers. Bitcoin clearly establishes itself as a preferred crypto for institutions, and the number of speak for themselves. Indeed, Bitcoin also ETFs have recorded net inflows of $21.5 billion since the beginning of 2025, with daily peaks exceeding $1.2 billion in October. The iShares Bitcoin Trust IBIT Fund from BlackRock, for example, now manages over $86 billion in assets, confirming the enthusiasm of major investors, with also essentially 103,840 on the clock today. If the current trend continues, Bitcoin could test 120,000 by the end of 2025, driven by ETF expansions, clearer regulations, and sustained institutional demand. However, a bearish scenario is not excluded from a potential drop to 90,000 in case of macroeconomic crisis or sudden fund essentially withdrawals. Institutions have taken control of BitGet right now, thus transforming the crypto markets. While this trend essentially brings stability and liquidity, it also raises questions about decentralization. The idea of decentralization existing, yes, we are going into a digital world, but there's always, as I said, going to be elements of centralization because they have more money, they have more power. So they're always going to be running the show, to be fairly honest. But the only thing you would ask, the only thing you would have to ask yourself is, why is the majority of buyers institutions now, and why is retail being pushed out now? Because we're so close to the ending. We're so close to crossing that finishing line. And that's why 80% of buyers right now are institutions, while the rest is retail. But in January, it was the other way around. Majority retail, minority institutions. But today, during this whole government shutdown scenario that's been happening, majority of buyers are institutions, minority is retail section. That should tell you everything you need to know. And regarding what essentially Funky Brother said inside the comment section as well, I heard BlackRock is selling up BTC ETFs. BlackRock is not selling the BTC ETFs. BlackRock doesn't essentially hold any, BlackRock doesn't own any BTC. They're holding BTC for their clients. So some clients may decide to sell, but the majority is still starting to hold. So every time you hear news, BlackRock selling BTC or essentially Grayscale selling essentially a certain amount or whatever, it's not technically the firms themselves, it's the clients that they're holding it for want to sell their assets. Just want to make that one clear as well. But it is a genuine question you should be asking yourself. Why is majority of buyers now institutions, minority retail? Because we're so close to the finishing line and they're pushing everybody out. The smallest news can create manipulation inside the crypto space right now. And the Democrats are loving the idea of being able to freeze the crypto market space and not let it breathe. But we're always going to be having the last laugh, to be fairly honest. Now, let's also explain what I mean by that. But before I do that, let's go inside the comment section. So let's see where we're inside the comment section first before we go through the next news on tonight's live. Let's see where we're at. We're here. Miles, when is this nightmare going to end? My patience is on the brink. Don't essentially lose patience. I said to everybody 2 years ago, once we get close to the finishing line, the last step is going to be frustration. They're going to frustrate you out of your positions. If you let them win, it's pretty much game over for you going forward. Knowing everything you know already of how the world is going to be turning into a digital space, don't let frustration get to you. Evening, Miles, and everyone from CMF. How did your trip go? It went well. Went very well, Joe. You think this bull run might be delayed up to 2026? No, I don't think it'll be delayed. I think it's going to be a surprise. Good evening, Miles. How are you doing, brother? I'm doing great. Cali, good to see you. How you doing? Will spot XRP ETFs make the price go up because Ripple releases 1 billion XRP every month? So won't they just be off them? No. So when Ripple releases 1 billion XRP every month, they actually essentially put 200 million in circulation, and the rest essentially goes back into the escrow. The majority goes back in the escrow. Some might go towards Ripple, but the majority goes back to escrow. So only 200 million gets into circulation. So that wouldn't be affected, no. Good to see you, Miles. Good to see you, Olin. How are you doing? But good question, M, because some might want to know about that. Evening, Miles. Can you explain the swell event, please? Yes, Paul. We're going to talk about the swell event a little bit later on tonight's live. A lot of things happen, which we're going to talk about. Hi, brother. Come on. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Miles, why is there a big dump always? Because the whole the two news that I read at the beginning of the live show regarding Nigeria and essentially North Korea apparently is now affecting the crypto market spaces. How ridiculous is that one? Even Miles and CMF, talk to see how you doing. Just our luck, Miles. We waited 4 years for the bull run, although we are so close, yet every day the prices are just dropping, and it seems like we might not have the run this year. It's getting worse day by day, like and repost. Let's go, but let's go, Joe. If institutions are buying, so why are the prices not rising? Instead, they are dropping. Because the amount that they're buying is still not sufficient enough to the amount that's being sold off. Hi, Miles, I read that even if the Clarity Act passes, it could take years before it's properly implemented. Well, the good thing is, good question, essentially, Rachel, good question. Regarding the Clarity Act, they said essentially that they're discussing the ins and outs of the Clarity Act during a government shutdown. So essentially, Scott Benson is going around having conversations with Democrats, with Republicans, with the Senate, with the House, and so on, trying to get the ins and outs, and also crypto CEOs of the entire Clarity Act. So when time comes, they could just pass it through and they could just essentially move forward. I did also say a while ago that once the Clarity Act passes through, if nothing happens straight after, it's again the frustration stage. A little bit of time, because people will come to the conclusion of, oh, the Clarity Act has passed, nothing's happened, I'm out, forget about it. And that's what they want you to think. They're going to put you through hell before you make it to the other side, pretty much. Hi, Miles. Be late on, be out. I missed you last night. Let's go, Adi. How you doing? Is it a good time to buy XDC now? Not financial advice. XDC is quite cheap, and so is the rest of the crypto market space. I heard BlackRock is we're going. I read that already. Miles, do you keep any Supra? Miles, do you keep any Supra? No, I don't. 100% Miles, top man. Let's go, Addy. Can you explain, or Miles explain, what you mean by surprise? Regarding essentially we will have the last laugh in that scenario. Well, because there was hints of that there can be a Clarity Act during a government shutdown, which is great to know. Also, there was essentially the XRP ETFs passing through that loophole, which is brilliant. And one thing that everybody needs to understand, there is a certain limit they can push the crypto space down to. You see, where the crypto market space is right now, $100,000 essentially, Bitcoin, or a little bit lower essentially, they're estimating it go down to 90,000 or so on. They can push the crypto market space down, down, and down to create fear. However, when it passes the level of pushing it too far down and is past the level of fear, now it becomes the level of buying back, which means the institutions would have pushed the market so far down that now the retail section is also buying spot, which is not what they want. The institutions want to push retail out, not make them buy crypto at cheap prices. So they'll push it down up to a certain level where it seems like it's a fear scenario. So retail is stuck, they're not buying because it's not relatively cheap enough still. For institutions, it is. But if they push it too far down, then essentially the retail section will buy as well, because at that point it's just extreme discounts. So the retail section will jump back into spot. And that's the last thing they want. So there's a limit they can push the crypto markets down to. And once it reaches that limit, it will bounce back up. They can't push it beyond that limit, because if they push it beyond that limit, then it will be too cheap. Even the retail section that extremely feel the market will buy it as well. They'll start buying spot. That's the last thing they want. There's a limit they can push the market down to. Reaches that limit, will bounce them back up. Miles, I wish I had your level of patience. Let's go funky. Well, I meant regarding your answer about the bull market not delayed for this year. That's regarding the limit. There's a limit they can push the crypto markets down to. They can't pass it more than that limit. If they try to do that, then the retail section will also buy as well. Then the whole story will just start over again. Hi, Miles and CMF Peg. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Now, also, regarding Trump on the news, essentially, it was said that the battle on crypto essentially has ended too. So, on the finance to bring US stocks trading to Europe is what we're going to talk about next. A little bit later on the live, we're going to go back into Ripple news. There's quite a lot of actually Ripple news to talk about. But for now, we're going to talk about on the finance. On the finance to bring US stocks essentially trading to Europe through tokenized assets. So there's still a lot of things happening inside the crypto space that are extremely positive. On the finance has unveiled plans to make US stocks trading accessible across Europe through tokenized securities listed on BX Digital regulated platform under the essentially German group. The initiative will enable investors in the European Economic Area to trade over 100 tokenized US stocks and ETFs and essentially ETPs in Switzerland. The move essentially announced this week links traditional markets with blockchain infrastructure in a regulated setting. With all of this going on, the crypto space is still expanding, and so is essentially the institutional sector inside the crypto space, and so is the governments. According to a joint statement by BX Digital, with listed trading and settlement on the tokenized assets on its upcoming digital asset exchange, BX Digital, part of the Boros essentially stock dog group, records about roughly 90 billion euros in annual trading volume, making it one of Europe's major essentially exchange operators, because that is a tremendous amount, 90 billion euros. The tokenized products are fully backed by their underlying assets, including stocks and ETFs held essentially with the licensed US custodial broker dealers, along with the cash essentially in transit. This structure ensures transparency and compliance with financial regulations while offering real-time settlements and global transferability. BX Digital Chief Executive Officer, essentially leader, Kurt, said the partnership aims to provide issuers worldwide with trusted environments for digital assets and products while broadening investor access across Europe. Through this collaboration, investors essentially across the European Union area will gain access to more than 100 tokenized securities, including ETFs. And through essentially BX Digital's regulated infrastructure, these tokenized products are structured to provide investors with exposure to the performance and dividends of the underlying essentially securities. Again, these are questions that we would have to be asking ourselves. Why would essentially under exchange would be expanding over 100 US essentially tokenized assets to the European market spaces in times like this? Because the market is not done, it's just getting ready. It's pretty much what it is. Now, moving on from Ondo Finance to Coinbase. This one is an interesting one because Coinbase is essentially trying to get some sort of a banking charter license. But Coinbase is also partnered with banks. And well, this is what's happened. Coinbase faces a essentially flack from traditional bankers on its push for a trust banking charter license. One of the biggest advocacy groups for banking in the US has asked the OCC to dismiss Coinbase's licensing efforts. The banking sector doesn't want Coinbase to have a license, a banking charter license. A US banking lobbying group essentially petitioned the agency that issues federal banking charters, the OCC, to reject Coinbase's application for a trust charter arguing the crypto exchange falls short of requirements in several categories. The Independent Community Bankers of America, an influential group that focuses on the policies and needs of thousands of smaller institutions, authored this latest attempt by the US banking sector to throw up objections to the forays of the crypto industry into overlapping territory once controlled entirely by traditional bankers. The latter, essentially today, to the OCC, said strongly opposed Coinbase's effort, which it said fails on multiple independent grounds, each of which is disqualifying under the OCC statutory, essentially chartering standards. What's interesting about this is they didn't mention Ripple by name at all so far, the banking charter, essentially the banking essential oppositions. This follows a similar effort essentially last week from the Wall Street lobbying group Banking Policy Institute, opposing trust applications from several other essentially crypto-tied firms. The ICBA letter argues that Coinbase Trust Bank would struggle to operate at a profit in a bear market. The OCC would face difficulties in safely dissolving essentially the trust if it failed that Coinbase National Trust Co. would rely on demonstrably flawed risk and control essentially functions. The organization also contended that the OCC's so-called imperative letter that's used as a basic for exchanges applications wasn't issued properly. The ICBA also asked the national bank regulator to deny Coinbase's application, or at least expand the portions of Coinbase's application materials available to the public view and hold a public hearing to examine it. BPI made essentially a number of similar claims about the other firms. Paul, Coinbase's chief legal officer, posted a response on social media site X, accusing the bankers of trying to dig regulatory mouths to protect their own. Imagine opposing a regulated trust charter because you prefer crypto to stay unregulated. And that's also true. The financial sector, the longer essentially they keep crypto in the Wild West, the better it is for them. In some cases, not all institutions or all banks are like this. Some banks, yes, and some institutions, yes. But they're loving the idea of the crypto space staying unregulated. Because if the crypto space gets regulated, like a Clarity Act, it will pretty much be the ending of the banking sector as we go along. Not overnight, but over time. Because as I said a long time ago, people will come to the realization that you don't really need a bank account if you want to make a transaction. All you need is a crypto wallet. And that is why the banks said that they don't want people to earn on holding stable coins, essentially stable coins, USDT or USDC or USD. Regarding the Genius Act that was passed, the banks were furious that people can earn a yield. Retail section can earn a small percentage on essentially their stable coins. The banking sector was absolutely furious on that matter. But it is true. Some banks, or the majority of banks essentially, and institutions, love the idea of the crypto space being unregulated. So they're benefiting in times like this. While the crypto market is still not regulated, and just think about it, we were just about to get a Clarity Act. Just about to get a Clarity Act. And suddenly government shut down. That is absolutely ridiculous and manipulated. And they know once we get essentially the Clarity Act and the regulations on the way, it's pretty much the endings for these banks as we go along. It's either they adapt to crypto firms or they get left behind. A spokesperson from the essentially at the OCC didn't immediately respond to a request for comment on the latter essentially from the ICBAs. The largest US-based digital asset exchange, whose CEO, Brian Armstrong, has been a routine White House guest at essentially recent crypto policy events, sought the charter last month in an effort to expand services such as payments and settlements and to ease the demands that its new financial services face approvals in 50 separate state jurisdictions. The company said it didn't have any designs or being a full-service bank. The application also essentially fails to meet the statutory charting standards, present essentially compounding safety and sadness risk, and would set a dangerous precedent for the structure of US banking systems, according to the letter. And this is Coinbase, essentially a bank. I mean, Coinbase Exchange is partnered with banks. It's partnered with JP Morgan, for crying out loud. And the banks still don't want Coinbase to have a banking license. They prefer Coinbase to use JP Morgan or any other bank, but just not for Coinbase to be a bank. it just shows you how scared these institutions and these banks are of the crypto sector taking over completely. That they're essentially sending a letter calling out Coinbase by name, saying dismiss their essentially application. Now, and honestly, just does, once again, it shows you how close we are to a finishing line. Literally how close we are to a finishing line. Now, moving on from that to the NASDAQ and essentially the Ripple Swell event and everybody else that was on the panel. Now, before we talk about the Ripple Swell event, let's go inside the comment section first, and then we go straight into the real Ripple Swell event news. There's quite a bit to go through, so let's go through the comment section first, see where we're at. By the way, thank you so much to everybody who has liked and retweeted this live on X. If you're watching this on X right now, if you haven't liked or essentially retweeted this essentially live on X, I don't know why, CMF members. It's the only thing I ever asked for. Honestly, it's the only thing I ever asked for is to smash the like button and smash the retweet button. And if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much for everyone that's liked live as well. And if you haven't, smash the like button also. Miles, do you think XRP ETFs will be approved on 13th of this month? It's a high possibility, to be fairly honest. High possibility. Mal, when they were gone bull run, like bear run, it's not a bear run in any sort of way. It's a manipulation run. How? Hi, Miles and CMF. Good to see you again. Carlos, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? How and in what ways do you think will ACH essentially, when finally launched, push the price of ACH token? Well, the world is still going to be in a transition period from going from fiat essentially to crypto payments. Now, ACH plays a role in that. LME Pay is also partnered with Ripple through some platform where essentially for it to be used as an on-ramp and off-ramp connected to essentially Ripple. So that's where LME Pay will play the role of on-ramps and off-ramps getting fiat into crypto payments. So there'll be some transition period there. Well, there you are. Hello, how you doing, Country One? How you been? Miles, is Coinbase still suing SEC Gary Gensler? Yes, if I'm not mistaken, they're still suing the SEC and Gary Gensler. Now, Ripple Swell event, the biggest thing that's happened today. So we're going to go through essentially who's on it and what they talked about and so on. So here it is. The NASDAQ CEO was the first one to open up the Ripple Swell event with the keynote moment. Ripple's most important event of the year, convening essentially leaders inside of crypto payments, banking, and policy. Swell kicks off in essentially in New York with the NASDAQ CEO taking the stage as the first person. Ripple has officially indicated the start of the Swell, its most important event of the year, which essentially convenes of leaders inside the crypto payments and backing for the future essentially of the financial sector. The Swell event now essentially being held in New York City will run from November 4th to November 5th, with high expectations already spanning inside the crypto community, according to a recent tweet by Ripple's Swell 2025 kickoff, with the opening remarks by Ripple President Monica Long and fireside chat with the NASDAQ chair and CEO Adonna. The Ripple Swell event's roll call for speakers includes prominent industry leaders from Ripple, BlackRock, NASDAQ, MasterCard, BNY Mellon, Fidelity, Franklin Templeton, among others. Besides NASDAQ CEO Adonna, essentially Friedman, who will participate in the first essentially fireside chat, which she already did, and the main thing she talked about was the Clarity Act. She obviously talked about how tokenization is going to be playing a role inside the crypto market space, and liquidity essentially is a big deal. But essentially, they favored how Ripple cares about the payment section, essentially sector, and how Ripple's going to advance so much in payments is what she talked about as well, from essentially from her perspective, from the NASDAQ perspective, on Ripple's footsteps. The other speakers included essentially Maxwell Stein, Director of Digital Assets at BlackRock, Cynthia essentially Lowe Benson, Head of Fidelity Digital Asset Management, Hunter Horsley, Bitwise CEO. He was also saying a lot of great things essentially regarding Ripple's footsteps inside the crypto space and how they were one of the first exchanges to help it out as well regarding essentially their stable coins and crypto, regarding their XRP. Kraken Exchange's CEO gave his perspective on the market space. Kraken CEO said that he was very happy that he was the first exchange that offered essentially XRP and also offered USD to the world. Scott essentially Lucas, the head of markets and digital assets at JP Morgan, and Christian Ray, the senior vice president of blockchain, digital assets, and fintech enable at MasterCard, among others, at the event. Insight beneficial for digital asset space and the financial markets are expected with the crypto community tuning in. Carlos, essentially the securities CEO, will also participate in panel discussions at the Ripple Swell event in the theme of driving global, essentially, growth and trust with RLUSD. Hours from the start of the event, Ripple announced the acquisition also of a digital asset wallet firm, which is Ripple essentially acquiring Palisade to boost essentially the multi-chain wallet support and strengthen digital asset custody. Even in times like this, Ripple is still expanding, taking more footsteps inside the financial sector. Ripple saw that it was easier for them to buy their way in rather than to try to mostly partner up. Ripple has acquired essentially Palisade, a digital asset wallet and essentially custody infrastructure company. And this latest essentially development represents a further strategic acquisition by Ripple, thereby strengthening essentially its position within the enterprise blockchain and digital asset management sector. The technology offered by Palisade enables essentially the implementation of multi-chain compatible wallets that can be installed within a short period essentially and are already integrated on the XRP ledger. This compatibility positions Ripple to expand its custody and payment system to meet the demand of international companies. Ripple also launched essentially its custody unit, providing institutional clients with scalable solutions to manage their assets securely. Moreover, Palisade essentially has affirmed that its wallet as a service essentially platform has now been integrated with the Ripple Enterprise solution, an advanced asset custody essentially and payment platform. The integration will enable the company to provide more efficient wallet services and a higher level of security in transactions on supported blockchains. The new Ripple acquisition is among the recent successful purchases and investments by the blockchain giant in companies within the digital finance essentially sector. The firm, best known essentially for its XRP cryptocurrency, has also made more than $4 billion essentially in purchases as a part of its strategy to expand its international portfolio in blockchain infrastructures and financial technology. This also includes an early acquisition this year by Ripple of the prime brokerage firm, essentially known as Hidden Road, which we talked about as well, which has since been renamed to Ripple Prime to improve its liquidity management, institutional trading capabilities. Additionally, Ripple also acquired, obviously, Rail, a stablecoin payment system, G Treasury, a treasury management firm, an acquisition valued at $1 billion. These acquisitions essentially indicate that Ripple is becoming increasingly interested in developing a comprehensive blockchain platform to integrate digital asset payments and treasury services. Nobody is doing it how Ripple is doing it, to be fairly honest. Out of the 50,000 different blockchain projects essentially inside the crypto space, let's say, and more, Ripple is the only one advancing at this scale inside the financial sector. No other crypto company, no other crypto project has expanded in a way that Ripple has inside the financial sector. And I'm not throwing shade in any way, any sort of way at other crypto projects, because there's a lot of great, essentially, crypto projects out there. For example, XLM, great. HBAR, great project. AVAX, great project. Solana, good project. Ethereum, getting better project. Ton, good project, and Chainlink, good project, and essentially Ondo, brilliant project. There's a lot of great essentially crypto projects out there, but honestly, when it comes to the end of the day, nothing compares to Ripple, nothing compares to the XRP ledger, nothing compares to XRP when it comes to the financial sector. And other crypto projects will say no, they're better than any sort of way, or influencers will tell people no, Chainlink is better, or Litecoin is better, or Solana is better, or Ethereum is better. They're all completely lying to be fairly honest. The purchase of Palisade essentially aligns with Ripple's strategy of expanding its business services and implementing a non-hurdle essentially system that connects financial institutions, adopting blockchain essentially technology. The company has similarly been expanding its product line to essentially tokenize asset management and international payments. Industry observers view the further developments of Ripple as an effort to establish itself as a global leader in blockchain financial infrastructure. Palisade wallet technology is also compatible with Ripple, offering scalable and secure solutions to banks, fintechs, and institutional investors. By introducing wallet and custody services into a single framework, Ripple can help customers working in multi-chain settings improve the efficiency and essentially security of their transactions. Now, AVAX, also amazing crypto project as well. But honestly, there is not a single crypto project that can compare to Ripple or essentially XRP Ledger or XRP or RLUSD. It's just not even possible. By a mile, it's not even possible. The footsteps that Ripple has taken, essentially acquiring companies out, spending billions of dollars of buying companies out to expand inside that, essentially crypto, to expand inside the financial sector, is more than what Chainlink has done, or Solana has done, essentially, or AVAX has done, or HBAR has done. And again, these are great projects also, but they haven't taken the footsteps that Ripple has to expand inside the financial sector. So this is why I always put Ripple in a different league. I would put essentially Chainlink or AVAX or essentially so on in a different league and even above Ripple if they took the same footsteps. But because they're not taking the same footsteps inside the financial sector, that's why Ripple is always going to be above them. And that's why the XRP ledger is always going to be above them. And so is XRP and RLUSD. It's all about the footsteps they take inside the financial sector that puts them in the categories they're in. And when I see a company like Ripple buying out essentially other companies to expand in that sector, spending billions of dollars, and I don't see that happening with Chainlink, where Chainlink's foundation is buying out billion-dollar companies to expand in that sector, in the custody service, tokenization service, and so on. And they're just partnering up. Well, Ripple also partners up. But you know what Ripple does? Buys out companies also to expand inside the financial sector. That's the footsteps they're taking that the other ones aren't taking. So this is why I've always put above everybody else, above any other crypto project out there, above any blockchain company out there. Now, also, Bitumul expands crypto margin to XRP and adds RLUSD stablecoin too. Bitumul Inc., a US derivatives exchange company, announced essentially today that its subsidiary, Bitumul essentially Clearinghouse LLC, has become the first and currently only US registered derivatives clearing organization to accept stablecoins as a native margin collateral. That is huge news. The clearinghouse is launching support for Ripple RLUSD and expanding its digital asset margin program to also include XRP. This expansion follows Bitumul's introduction of crypto margin deposits, essentially back in September 2025. RLUSD and XRP margin deposits are immediately available to essentially institutional clients on Bitumul exchange. Retail traders will also gain access through Bitumul essentially retail trading platform. The addition of RLUSD stablecoin allows traders to margin position with USD pegged digital assets, providing essentially capital efficiency while retaining the benefits of blockchain native settlements. At the Ripple Swell conference in New York, Luke, the CEO of Bitumul, stated, adding RLUSD and XRP as a margin collateral represents a major evolution in how traders can deploy their digital assets. This is the CEO of Bitumul Exchange saying this at the Ripple Swell event. RLUSD brings stablecoin efficiency to our margin systems, allowing traders to hold USD equivalent positions on-chain while essentially accessing our full suite of derivative products. Combined with XRP support, this gives our clients unprecedented flexibility in how they manage capital across trading strategies. This is such a neutral extension of our partnership with Ripple and our commitment to building the most capital-efficient derivatives infrastructure in the US market space. Michael, the president essentially of Bitumul Exchange LLC, added also by saying, addition of RLUSD and XRP further enhances the capital efficiency advantages available to traders on Bitumul Exchange. He described stablecoins as reliable mechanisms for both retail traders and institutions, offering USD stability with the speed and efficiency of blockchain settlements. With the expanded collateral options, traders can now leverage stablecoin holdings and XRP positions to access the full range of CFTC regulated crypto derivatives and reducing friction when moving essentially between different asset types. Jack McDonald, the SVP stablecoins at Ripple, commented on the announcement, saying, with today's announcement adding an essentially native support for RLUSD and XRP as a margin collateral, Bitumul cements its position as one of the most forward-thinking US derivative exchanges. Forced US stablecoins are also moving from primarily speculative use cases to real-world applications, with RLUSD as a trusted Tier 1 US-backed stablecoin leading the pack. It's the first time this has ever been done in US market history, and they chose RLUSD alongside XRP to lead the way. Bitumul has consistently developed capital-efficient market infrastructure, having been essentially the first to launch a regulated futures in the US, the first to accept digital assets as a margin essentially collateral, and now the first to accept stablecoins as a margin collateral. The combination essentially of RLUSD stablecoin margin, XRP support, and Bitumul's existing Bitcoin and Ether margin deposits creates a comprehensive digital asset margin system on US essentially regulated exchanges. This initiative is expected to benefit crypto native funds, institutional traders, and market essentially makers, allowing them to deploy digital asset portfolios more efficiently while maintaining full regulatory compliance. All Bitamor futures and option contracts are offered by and subject to the rules of Bitamor Exchange LLC and cleared through the Bitamor Clearinghouse LLC. RLUSD and XRP margin collateral acceptance is subject to all participants' regulatory approvals pending. Incredible news, honestly, absolutely amazing news for that to be coming out at the Ripple Swell event. That should have been very good for XRP, but the market space is being manipulated. Now, XRP's ledgers, essentially dual utility, essentially could make a breakout, essentially an ETF play, and experts argue. So regarding XRP ETFs, that too could be on the verge of passing through, that don't need any more a response from the SEC due to this whole government shutdown. And it's a legal loophole. Ripple's unified system for payments and wealth storage may give XRP an edge, with institutions eyeing real-world utility beyond the speculations, essentially also said the CEO, essentially Luke, of Bitamor. The XRP ledger's ability to support both value transfer and real-world payments from a single platform could give it a structural advantage in the growing crypto ETF markets, according to derivatives exchange Bitamor founder and CEO Luke. They're pretty much putting XRP and essentially XRP and RLUSD in a completely different category because of what they bring to the table inside the financial sector. What I think is unique about XRP and RLUSD is you have a single ledger that is driving a two-pronged strategy, one of wealth storage and transfer in XRP, and the other is RLUSD, which is payments, said essentially the CEO of Bitamor at the Ripple Swell conference in New York. Having that both on a single ledger with a single strategy, to me, is what makes this ecosystem unique. This is Bitamor Exchange CEO coming out pretty much saying, out of the entire crypto space, XRP and RLUSD on the XRP ledger essentially are unique compared to any other crypto project out there. The comments came during a panel discussion alongside Bitwise's CEO also, Hunter, Carry Capital, also CEO Stephen, and Bloomberg Intelligence Senior ETF essentially analyst specialist Eric had their own opinions. The group discussed what a spot XRP ETF could look like and why they think it might outperform past crypto ETF launches. That's the interesting factor, that XRP ETFs will pass what the previous ETFs achieved with Bitcoin and Ethereum. Mick Clark explained how new SEC rules combined with existing future activities now allows ETF issuers to file what's called a non-delay amendment for assets like XRP. So for instance, if everybody wanted to know regarding the ETFs, how they essentially going to be passed, it is based on that law that I read out a long time ago, but here's a bit more detailed version. So for instance, we filed essentially for that Litecoin and HBAR, several weeks ago, which both of those went live last week, McCormick said. And then we filed for an XRP ETF with no delay amendments, especially 20 days before November 13th. That means that a spot XRP ETF could go live as early as next week. Bitwise, which has recently launched a Solana staking ETF, is also in a race. That fund, essentially, BSOL, brought in $500 million in its first week, one of the strongest performance of any ETFs back in 2024. Hosley said he believes XRP could be next. I think XRP, and we know from our client base, is one of the highest conviction assets among investors. So I think it will do fabulously well and will bring it to market across all these investor types to make sure it has the best shot at making a dent inside of this sector. Eric, the senior ETF analyst that everybody's very familiar with inside the crypto space from Bloomberg Intelligence, echoed that view. He compared the ETF launch of XRP to a cannonball run, and said XRP has already proven its popularity in the past crypto fund launches. It wouldn't surprise me if XRP ends up being the breakout ETF of the next cycle. This is Eric, the ETF Bloomberg specialist analyst, who was the same guy that essentially said Bitcoin ETFs will be happening at this date, according to his own sources. And Ethereum ETFs will be happening, even though Michael Saylor said they won't. So now him stating these things at the Ripple Swell event, saying that the XRP ETF is going to be a cannonball run, also saying that it wouldn't surprise me if XRP ends up being the breakout ETF of the next cycle. Still, the panel also cautioned that ETFs alone essentially isn't the price, and we need that Clarity Act. But as new tools like in-kind creation, physically settled futures, and tighter spreads come into play, XRP may be better positioned than most inside the crypto space. Again, these are CEOs, ETF specialists, analysts from Bloomberg, which is gospel to the entire crypto space, to essentially also to the stock market for the longest, since the dawn of time, essentially, since the beginning of the stock market, essentially saying that XRP may be better positioned than most to benefit from a broader shift of crypto into regulated finance. They're essentially saying in a regulated environment, in a regulated crypto market space, XRP is better positioned, in their own words, compared to any other crypto project out there, which is what I've been saying for the longest time. There is not a single crypto project that can compare itself to Ripple, XRP Ledger, or XRP or USD when it comes to the financial sector. Honestly, there is nothing that can compare to this crypto project. And again, this is Eric's own words, saying XRP may be better positioned than most to benefit from a shift of crypto in a regulated financial sector. Also, Nate Garcia predicts XRP ETFs launch before essentially September. Under the Trump administration, essentially, we've had the Trump administration pro crypto, did quite a lot of things for the crypto space. Now, spot XRP ETFs within 2 weeks is what's been suggested. So in recent days, speculation has soared again. Nate Garcia, one of the most listened to ETF analysts inside the United States, anticipates the essentially arrival of the spot XRP ETF within 2 weeks. This is not a rumor, but a forecast that shakes the crypto ecosystem like an earthquake. From a marginalized token to a figure of hope, XRP has come a long way. For 5 long years, Ripple faced off against the SEC in a regulatory battle full of twists and turns. Last summer, the page was turned with a legal settlement, a relief for the crypto market space. Nate Garcia, president of ETF Store, an influential voice inside the world of essentially listed funds, states that the first spot XRP ETF could see the light of day by mid-November. Canary Capital has amended its filing essentially for the SEC, removing its delaying clause. This suggests the launch essentially as early as November 13th. Garcia sees this as a turning point, a historical shift for the sector. Beyond this announcement, other players are also sharpening their strategies. Bitwise adjusted its fees for XRP ETF, so now it's cheaper to essentially buy an XRP ETF with Bitwise's ETF on its past. Grayscale and 21 Shares awaited their turn as well. Even CoinShares is essentially positioning itself. On the other hand, BlackRock and Fidelity, although engaged in Solana, are observing without getting involved. All the other ETF applicants that applied for an XRP ETF are all amending their filings right now, trying to pass through an XRP ETF really quickly. Yet, essentially, the ones that filed in for a Solana ETF aren't doing the same thing. They're just sitting on the sidelines, watching the XRP ETF file amendments happen so it passes faster. The XRP ETF could act as a catalyst for the entire crypto space. Unlike essentially derivatives, products it would offer direct exposure to assets. The investor would own essentially XRP, not a derivative of product of its essentially price. The difference changes everything. Since September, retail investors have accumulated over $1.39 billion essentially in XRP, an impressive figure, proof of essentially growing optimism in its climate of anticipation, and Canary Capital seems ready to strike hard. Rex Shares also has already launched their XRP PR, which we talked about, hybrid XRP ETF. From the analyst perspectives, XRP is going to be the one that essentially is going to be a catalyst for the crypto market space. So, regarding this whole XRP ETF, if you want to know, is an XRP ETF going to be passed? By the looks of it, it's going to be passed within 2 weeks' time. Within essentially 13th, we should be expecting an XRP ETF to be happening. According to Grayscale, essentially, according to Carry Capital, according to Nate from the ETF store, and according also to Eric from the Bloomberg ETF Specialist Analyst, Eric, we could be expecting an XRP ETF very soon. But what I'm mostly essentially happy about is finally they're coming out and saying these words. One, that there is nothing that compares to XRP is pretty much what Bitmore's CEO said when he called XRP essentially an RLUSD on one ledger controlling the entire financial sector, essentially a unique play that they've never seen before in the entire crypto sector. Two, with them essentially stating that in a regulated financial space, Eric, the ETF Bloomberg Specialist Analyst, stating in a regulated financial space, XRP will take the crown all day long. And three, that XRP ETFs are going to be absolute cannonballs pretty much going forward. And they're going to be the catalyst for the entire crypto market space. On that note, that there is so much good news, but the market, the price action is just not reflecting that in any sort of a way. We have come to the endings of tonight's live. Just want to make one thing very clear. They are going to be putting you through hell, which they already have, to be fairly honest. You're going to go through some ups and downs. The last stage is frustration, but the finishing line is going to be absolutely incredible. With the Clarity Act, the ETFs, and everything else that comes with it. There's a reason why the institutions are pushing you out now than they ever did back in January. And there's a reason why institutions are essentially sending some sort of letters to OCC to stop the footsteps of crypto companies. And there's a reason why all these big players were invited to Ripple Swell event to give a massive speech. On that note, we have reached the endings of tonight's live. So please don't get frustrated. If you get frustrated, they win. You cannot let them win. This is the first time in your lifetimes you are standing at the front of this line. Don't stand at the back of this line knowing everything you know about what's going to happen next. You know what Ripple is going to achieve. You know what XRP is going to achieve. You know what the RLUSD is going to achieve. You know where the crypto space is going. So for the first time in your lifetime, don't get frustrated, don't give up, and don't stand at the back of the line. Stand at the front of the line for once in your life. Because it will be a shame for everything that you know to go right back to the behind the line, but stand behind everybody else. On that note, we have come to the endings of tonight's live. This was episode 399 of the CMF Live. The CMF stands for Crypto Mouse Family. My name is Miles. You can tune to this live Monday to Friday, 10 p.m. London time onwards. For most recent news regarding cryptocurrency, CBDCs, AI, politics, regulations, all the information you need to know about regarding the world completely transforming into a digital space. The disclaimer of this live, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. If you haven't checked it out, go and check out the third-party, essentially Ripple Swell event keynote that I did. Go and check it out, everyone. If you already haven't, it's on X, on my profile, on the CMF community page on X. If you have, thank you so much. Like, comment, retweet. If you already haven't, smash the like buttons, smash the retweet buttons if you already haven't. Do the exact same thing on YouTube. If you followed and subscribed to me during this live show as well, thank you so much and welcome to the CMF as well. Let's go to the comment section before we do call tonight. Night Miles at CMF. Pablo, see you tomorrow, same time as usual. Let's see where we're at the section inside the comment section. I think we missed a bit of questions as well. I missed the days, few weeks after BTC. Miles, any ideas of XRM? No ideas on XRM. I could take a look into it and get back to you. I missed that day a few weeks after BTC ETS gets approved and then jumped so hard at the point Coinbase got congested. AVEX, yeah. Let's get those ETFs rolling out. Facts. Let's go. Happy Pisces. How you doing? Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Good evening, Miles. Manny, good to see you. How you doing? Eric's perspective carried a lot of credibility as well. Yes, it did. 100%. Night Miles, the CMF. Pablo, see you tomorrow, same time as usual. Thanks, Miles. Awesome live. Have a great night and see you tomorrow, same time. Artistic, see you tomorrow, same time as usual as well. Great live, Miles. Thank you. Good night, Miles and CMF. Jason, see you tomorrow, sometimes usual as well. Thank you, Miles. Stormy, see you tomorrow, sometimes as usual. Nice work, Miles. Michael, see you tomorrow, sometimes as usual. Good night. Let's go, Michael. Good night, Miles, and all the CMF. Thank you for a great live and news, JP. Let's go. See you tomorrow, sometimes as usual. Good night, Miles and CMF. Such a great news. See you tomorrow. Free Velvet. Let's go. See you tomorrow, sometimes as usual. And there's a reason why there's so much FUD about XRP. Don't let them win. We are here, ready, and almost time. Let's go, SJ. Facts. Let's go, Shelly. We appreciate you, Miles. Good night, all. Let's go, Lena. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Miles, do you think it's a good idea to dollar cost average out of XRP and into RLUSD in the bull run? If you want to, sure. You know, you want to take profit, why not? Just remember, this time around, it is very, very different. This time around is extremely different. This is not the same cycles you've been into. This is a utility cycle. So make sure if you do try to cash out, just remember, it's not a bull season, it's a utility season. It's very different. Miles, that was one of the best lives. Thank you so much for being such a Trojan. Let's go, Adi. No problem. Adi, like and retweet the live show if you enjoyed it that much. Let's go, Adi. Great live, as always, Miles. Appreciate your insights. Hold on, CMF. At the bottom is almost in. Let's go, Shelly. Facts. Good night, Miles, and good night, CMF. Till tomorrow night. Let's go, Frankie Butler. Same time as usual. Great live, Miles. Buy the dip and hold the line. Let's go, Mike. Facts. Good night, all. Let's go, Stormy. Have a great evening, Miles. Brilliant show. See you tomorrow. Let's go, Joe. See you tomorrow. Same time as usual. Mike, see you tomorrow. Same time as usual as well. Stormy, see you tomorrow. Same time as usual. Joe, see you tomorrow. Same time as usual. Also, CMF, please go and watch Miles on X from Keynote at Ripple Swell. Best analysis ever. Like and repost. Facts. Let's go, Shelly. If you haven't seen my keynote speech for the Ripple Swell event, please go and check it out. It's on X, on my profile, and on the CMF Essential Communities page on X. If you haven't checked it out already, like, comment, retweet, share, follow, subscribe. If you already haven't, if you have, thank you so much. I'll see everybody tomorrow, same time as usual. Everybody have a great day or a good night, depending on where you're around the world. Love you all. See you tomorrow, same time as usual.